In today's Necron video, we're going to have a look at the Necron Seraptek Heavy Construct size, and I'm going to do a build review to help you when you build yours.
Necrons!
And then I can put the smaller gun. Oh!
Necrons! Necrons!
Nick speaking, and welcome to this video. And if you want to keep up to date with the Wonders of Warhammer 40k, not miss an upload, then please subscribe and hit the bell button so you don't miss a video. I upload Mondays, Thursdays and Saturdays every week. Okay, so the aim of this video is to do a size comparison of the Forge World Necron Seraptek Heavy Construct up against some other models. Now, before the size comparison, I'm going to do a review of the build. I'm hoping that this review will help you when it comes to you building yours. Oh, go on, give us a kiss. Ah, best buddies. Okay, so in this part of the video, I'm going to cover the instruction book and just run over some stuff which I've learnt via the book and the build. So this, of course, is the instruction book, a very nice colour instruction book. Got a list of all the parts, etc. The first thing you want to do is make sure you have all of the parts, and then you need to wash and dry them. So wash them in some nice hot soapy water, leave them to soak for a few hours, and then get a toothbrush and just gently scrub the parts to get any residue off. And then you want to air dry them before you do anything. Now, they come numbered on little pieces of sprue. I would advise you keep them on the sections. What I did is I built one piece at a time using the instruction book and cleaning up each section and taking them off of the numbered sprue as I went along, and it seemed to work pretty well. There was a lot of cleaning up to do. I took my time. It took many hours to make this model. However, each hour was incredibly enjoyable. I really did enjoy this build, and the detail of this model is absolutely fantastic. Now, as we come to the next page in the instruction book, this is where I had a few problems. So when I got to section 14, I noticed the first error. So basically the numbers here are round the wrong way. So where it says piece 34 is actually piece 35, and of course the other way around there. Now, not a problem, you can easily work out from the picture that that is an error. However, that was the first error, but not the only one. As I moved through the instruction book, I also noticed that the legs here and down here are also incorrect. So it says 13 here, it's actually 15, and up here where it says 15, they're actually 13. However, those were the only errors in the book, but of course it's worth noting that. It's also worth noting that if you're planning on doing a detailed paint job on this thing, rather than just dry brushing it, which is what I'm going to do, I would suggest that you don't actually glue this piece on here, the underbelly, or these arm plates here. If you do that, it's going to be very, very difficult to actually paint this model. To be fair, I'm probably going to struggle to get my dry brush in there, but if you're planning on doing edge highlighting, etc., then I would definitely leave these pieces off. In actual fact, whilst this model is incredibly detailed, as you build the model, you'll notice that a lot of that detail does get covered up. Now, the other thing to note as well is when you're building the legs, it says glue all of these joints together, and then it goes on to say pose the model how you want to. What I'd highly recommend is you don't glue these together as per the instructions. I would suggest that you do it in this stage here when you're actually gluing the legs on. Now, it is a bit tricky. It took me an hour to glue the legs into position to get a good pose. However, it was the most fun part of the build, even though it was tricky. Now, in terms of the gun instruction books, there was no errors at all. In actual fact, the guns were pretty simple to build, especially this one. This one here was a little bit more tricky, mainly because I had a slight warping on some of these longer sections. Not a problem, I just heated it up with a hairdryer and bent them into place. Once done, I was able to glue them very easily. Now if you're interested to know more about the weapon options and how I magnetise them, I've got a video for you coming up soon showing you exactly what I did. For now though, it's time to have a look at a size comparison with this awesome Seraptek model. Pieces of 8! Pieces of 8! Okay, so here is my Seraptek Heavy Construct. I'm absolutely loving this model. Now I tried to make this guy as dynamic as I could. Most of the builds that I've seen so far, people have just been having him sitting there with the big guns as the main focus. I'm going to try and get mine into close combat as well, especially if it's going to explode. So I wanted to make him a little bit more menacing, not just with those big guns, but also with the big scything things on the front of him. Now, one little thing about these scything things is when you build them as if these here are not glued, which was one reason that inspired me to actually put one of these in the air, because I thought that was pretty cool. It does, however, make it a little bit odd on the ones that are on the floor, because they sort of go up and down, and I don't really know there's actually any point. I might glue this one in that up position just to keep it flat. Now I've also got one of his legs on the back here off of the ground, like so, again just to try and get that dynamic look as if he's moving across the table. The guns themselves, they're magnetised, and if I can get it off, there we go. This joint here moves around as well, so again you can change the pose up quite a lot. And here we go with the smaller gun as well. So really cool, loving the model, but what we really want to do is compare the size to some other models. Okay, so the first thing to note regarding the height of this model is that the height can change depending on the pose that you do. So if you look at the Forge World pose here, you can see it's much lower than my one. With my dynamic pose, I've managed to get him to 10 inches tall. Now I reckon you could get it another inch higher if you wanted to, but it would mean having these joints here quite straight, and I think it would look a little bit odd. And of course with my leg in the air, that does give me another couple of inches. So let's have a look and compare him to some other models. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring some models in, starting with some small ones and gradually getting bigger, so you can really see how big this model is. So let's start off first with a Scarab Swarm. So yeah, of course, the Scarab Swarm is a very small model anyway, but as you can see, he's looking pretty big. Right, now let's have a look at a Necron Warrior. So of course just a normal infantry guy. Now as you can see, he is dwarfed under the legs of the Heavy Construct. Right, next let's have a look at a Space Marine. Okay, so there is my Rune Priest. Not a Primaris Marine, but just a normal mini Marine as they're now called. The Seraptek is looking pretty big still. Okay, so next we've got an Eldar Wraithguard, again an elite sized infantry model, and the Seraptek is still huge against him. Okay, so next let's bring in a Necron Destroyer, and once again the Seraptek is still massive compared to him. How about a Nightbringer? The Nightbringer, the shard of a Star God, and of course the Seraptek footprint is huge compared to these very small bases that we've got. Okay, so let's get some bigger models on the table. Now I don't own an Imperial Knight, but I do own an Armiger Warglaive, and as you can see the Seraptek is still massive compared to that, so this thing is not small. So let's go up in size. Next up we've got the Tyranid Morlock. Now I think the Morlock is starting to get up to the same height that this model could be if you made it quite flat. However, in my pose it's still pretty dwarfed. So let's bring in a Wraith Knight. Now the Wraith Knight is sitting roughly to the top of that body, so it's the leg which is making the Seraptek even bigger. However, that gives you a very good idea of how big this thing is, and like I said, it's got a massive footprint as well. Now the last model that I'm going to bring in is a Tyranid Harpy stroke Hive Crone on a flying base. And as you can see, the Seraptek is still taller than him. Even without the leg in the air, still going to be taller. So this model, I think, is probably about the right height for the stats that it is. It's a nice size, it takes a good amount of room up on the table, and it looks very imposing. I am really happy with the size, but let me know what you think of the size in the comments box below. And if you're not subscribed yet, start now. Hit the Edic Beer icon. And if you want to find out how to win with Necrons, check out my playlist there. I've got 4 awesome videos for you. Beam me up!